Okay, so now all the ribbon is on the wreath, and it does get squished when you flip it back and forth, so we'll fix the ribbon in a little bit. So we're going to start by turning it over to the back side, and we're going to work on kind of tying off these pipe cleaners. And the reason why we do this is just because pipe cleaners have that pointy end and can scratch the surface that you're hanging on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take my, and this is when, if you have pliers and such, they come in handy, but you certainly can do it by hand. So I'm going to just check to make sure they're tight enough. I'm going to twist off. If you don't have either wire cutters or the nose pliers, you're just going to roll the pipe cleaner down, just like that. When you come to, sometimes when you come to these ones on the edge, you might want to kind of pull it more in and then twist off. So that's why I don't like to twist them all the way off initially, just because if I want to change something. So if you happen to have wire cutters, you can just trim off and then just use the tool to help roll it down. But like I said, you can certainly do it either way. So I'm going to go around and tie off all my pipe cleaners, and then we'll come back and do a little finessing of the wreath and adding the sign. Okay, so our back's all now finished off. All the pipe cleaners are tied off. We're going to flip it back to our front. Sorry, I didn't mean to hit the camera there. And now is a good time to kind of spread out your ribbons, making sure they're separated. And don't worry if you end up with some, like right here, I have two patterns that are identical next to each other. It's totally fine. And just kind of, all right. So I'm probably gonna do this again once I get the sign on, so I'm not gonna spend too much time on this, but just kind of separating it out. And it also kind of gives me an idea of looking at my wreath and seeing where I want to put my sign. So I want to kind of pay attention to my trucks, as I said before. So I have my trucks kind of going that way and then down here. So I think I'm going to pull my sign in and try and figure out where how I want this to go. I think this is where I want it. And you know, you pick the spot that looks best for you, whether you want to highlight some ribbon, and we're gonna pull it out underneath too. So I think that's what I'm gonna go with. So I'm gonna start on one edge. And what I do is I take, you've got a lot of fishing line to work with, so you should have plenty to tie off. So you're gonna kind of snake it down between some mesh, and you're gonna grab one of those wire rings and you're gonna loop that the fishing line around it. So it kind of helps hold it. And then I like going back down through my hole. It just helps to kind of keep this a little bit tighter and from slipping, because fishing line can kind of slip over time. And then I'm going to pull that fishing line back to the back side. Now I'm going to do the same thing for this side. I'm going to kind of go between the mesh to the back side. And I'm going to loop it around one of the wire rings, coming back up. And going back down my hole. Okay. Feed that through to the back side. So now I'm going to grab my two ends of the fishing line that are on the back side and kind of, you do want the mesh, you do want the sign to kind of be sitting into the wreath and not completely up on the mesh. We can move the mesh around so that it shows more if that's a concern, but I kind of want it, you kind of want it down in. So I like where that is and how far down it is. I'm going to flip it over, and now I'm going to see where I am. So I've got a crossbar here, which I'm going to take advantage of. Sometimes you end up between the two crossbars, which is fine. You can use both, but since these are both in close proximity to that one, I'm going to use that. So I'm taking it and kind of wrapping it around. I'm going to do the same from this one, going kind of the opposite direction. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and throw one tie. And I want to just double check to make sure, because I've let it go if it's still sitting where I want it, and it does appear to be. So I had to let off some tension. So now I'm going to do my next throw. And since I may not always throw a perfect square knot, I do several to help keep it from slipping. All right, so there we go. There's two, basically. My first one, my second, now a third, and a fourth. And then what I often like to do is actually do incorporate one more bar and do another couple throws. And again, this is probably more than is necessary, but it makes me feel better knowing it's pretty secure. Okay. So this is when you need your scissors. Just to trim that off. Now we're going to go the other side. Okay. And again, I'm going to work this down. Maybe. Fishing line's hard to work with, and I know it's hard for you to see on the video, just because it's clear for all intents and purposes. Okay. All right, that one's pulled through to the back side. I'm going to do the same with this one. I'm going to go down, round. Well, it's not cooperating. It's always one side that doesn't cooperate with me. Okay, come back up. And back through the hole. And you do want to kind of make sure you're not catching like this outer ribbon and things like that, because when you undo it, after you've already tied off the back, you're going to have some slack there. So that's why you want to be cautious. All right, so I'm going to pull that through. I'm going to grab both ends in one hand. Again, I like where that's sitting. So I'm going to turn it over. And again, we're in a good location with this crossbar here. So I'm going to take advantage of that. This one's coming down and around. And this one's going to go up and over. Okay. And then I'm going to go ahead and tie off. And you can flip it over to check to see if it's taut enough for you. Okay, I'm gonna come around one more and do a couple more throws. And now I'll trim off my ends and flip it back over. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and kind of pull out some of that ribbon and mesh that maybe is under there that I want to be seen. And you can also tuck some under if you know, like over here where I've got multiple, I've got the double here, I can pull some out and kind of tuck some under and then kind of pull. So you can, you know, shift things around. However you want. Okay. And this is a little bit longer sign than some of them I use, so it does kind of cover up the edges, but that's okay. All right, so the last step is we're going to add our little hanger. Now you don't have to use it. I like to use 3M hooks to hang my wreaths. So I do find that it does stay on there better when I do use the little wire hook. And you can keep working the ribbon until you're happy with it. And the mesh does shed. So let me grab that wire and we will add that. So this is your little wire. And so I'm just going to curve it to start. I'm going to come up, kind of up through the center and flip it over to the back. Again, you can just use these to hang your wreath. I just find it stays put a little bit more with the wire. And again, if you don't have the needle nose pliers to move the wire, that's okay, because as you can see, I can totally do it with my fingers, and that works. But since I have them, I will save my fingers and use them. So that is how you do your wreath. I hope you found this easy and enjoyed it, and hopefully you'll come back and do another one with me. Thanks for watching. Bye.